I was stressing that I wouldn't be able to record the amount of episodes that I needed to record this week before going on a vacation. And then I realized I have stories. I can just tell the stories, and I can do it right here in my living room. This sign is from the sizzle reel that we put together for a documentary that we're trying to get made. And that documentary has a lot to do with grief. So, how we got to that point is kind of a crazy story in itself. I had a company and I brought on a friend who had borderline personality disorder. And the short version of that story, which I'll tell on stage and I'll tell in greater detail at a different point, she made up a lie and was like, if you don't give me a bunch of money, then I'm going to tell everybody this lie and destroy your career. And so it fucked me up. But I had this company for 6 years that was all centered around helping people, right? So social enterprise. And so I had created my own master's at Villanova in social enterprise. That's how do you mesh financial incentive with social impact and put it into a company, right? So like an easy version to conceptualize is like Tom's Shoes. And they had their own hiccups and stuff that they did incorrectly. But that's kind of the concept. However many pairs of shoes you get, a bunch of people that don't have shoes get access to shoes. Again, they've got their own hiccups, but so I created multiple companies. The first one out of my master's, I had like sat down with a bunch of professors and I came up with this idea because 20% of food, perishable food, does not make it out of the farm, right? Because it's not aesthetically pleasing. And then another 40% of perishable food is wasted after that. And so there's also about 30 million people that don't have access to fresh food or produce. And so we call it a food desert. And so I had spent the whole last semester of my master's putting together this business plan to essentially, through a food truck business model, bring would-be wasted food to food deserts. And so that was the first stab at like a social enterprise, like a real company. And it was funny because you getting hyped up by professors, and they're just like, yo dog, this is sick, and they say it in better words. And so I got so hyped up, but then like I went out to the real world, right? So I worked on a food truck for like a couple months just to like get a vibe for it and see like, what am I missing? And the answer was everything. Nobody I was fucking with had ever worked on a food truck or done anything with food in general, right? So the whole idea was we put the menu together was cauliflower pizza, right? Because I went out to Anacostia, which is a neighborhood in D.C., and I started surveying people and just seeing like what food people would eat, what food people had a demand for that was healthy. And so it was wild because the difference in diabetes between Anacostia and Georgetown, which are right across the water, was something crazy, like 35-40% difference. And a lot of it started with like knowledge. People just didn't have knowledge for the food. And so, for instance, like I had multiple people when I was like, would there be a demand for, I was also, white dude in a black neighborhood standing outside of a store surveying people, so people didn't really want to fuck with me anyway. But I was like, would there be a demand for broccoli? And there were like a handful of people that didn't know what broccoli was, right? And so there was a lot of like education that needed to happen. And then my, white savior of an ass was just like, oh, so I'm just going to educate people and then we're going to fix the whole systemic problem. And spoiler alert, I didn't, right? I was making stupid mistakes. Like I was like, yo, we're going to do cauliflower pizza because pizza, everybody can sink their teeth into. Literally. But cauliflower was one of the things that either aesthetically wasn't pleasing enough, but you're processing all of it, so it didn't matter. And so all of it made so much sense in my head. And then so as soon as I stepped on the food truck, I told them what my idea was. And they're like, okay, so how much space is the dough going to take up? And I was like, it's like dough. It like fits in the spaces, I think. And like, no, you fucking idiot. You need to have a very precise measurement of how much space the dough is going to take up. And I won't bore you with all the minutia, but there were lots of very simple questions like that I just didn't answer. And me and all these professors had gone through this whole plan and were like, yo, you are killing it. You gonna be saving people, making money, all that shit. And so I didn't. And then the other idea that I had going was to be a broker for technology that was positioned to improve the agricultural supply chain, right? So a lot of my research was on the food systems and stuff like that. And there was technology that had scientists, but it didn't have the sales team, the marketing team behind it to push some of these like great technologies through. And so I did a bunch of research, and I found this technology, and they were small anaerobic digesters. And so a lot of the stories that we've got so far, the stories with Stephen, have been maybe not this dry, but so small anaerobic digesters. What it is you put organic waste in, and out comes biofuel, soil, and electricity. And so historically, that has been done in a very big facility. It's not cost effective, and it just like a lot of them get shut down because they're not cost effective. So these dudes had made one that was a shipping container size. It has the output. It's transportable. Everything about it is fucking groundbreaking, right? And so I finished my MBA up in South Africa, and this is like while I'm also working on this food truck idea. I've got these couple different companies that I'm talking to about, peddling their technology. And so finished my MBA in South Africa, and it's essentially this like multi-week thing where we're going to these different university or different big employers, right? KPMG was one of Nando's Chicken, like just like big South African corporations, but then a lot of NGOs and stuff. It was whatever. It was cool. But we met with this group, and they were the biggest grocery retailer in Southern Africa. They're in like 14 different countries. And we listened to this long speech by the CEO's daughter talking about how they cared so much about social impact. And I was like, my ears perked up. And I was like, okay, well, I align with that too, so let's do it. And she was talking about how some of the townships don't have access to electricity, and that leads to a lot of sexual assault and good old-fashioned assault. She had also said that there were a lot of environmental issues with the way that waste disposal was moving. And so I had been talking to this anaerobic digester company, so I talked to her at this networking thing afterwards, and I was like, yo, I'm representing this company, which we hadn't inked the deal yet, but like I was flying to Seattle afterwards. And I was like, I'm representing this company, and this is what they do, and this is the output they can put out. And, I had all the stats all memorized. And she's like, okay, well then, yeah, let's put you in touch with our sustainability team. So I was supposed to start a like vacation in South Africa after this MBA stuff, but I canceled all of it to do all this trip stuff or all this meeting with the grocery retailer. And so I'm like, okay, word, let's meet with the sustainability team. I meet with them the next day. And, by this point, I'm like, I don't have any access to washer dryer, and I'm recycling the dress clothes. I go in there, and this was like a big learning opportunity for me, because I went in there and I started just reciting everything that she had said. I was like, we're going to make a social impact. We're going to make an environmental impact. It's going to be so great. And I almost got laughed out of the room. They're like, yo, tell us how we're going to make money. And that was kind of a dick punch, right? Like I was just like, oh, is that really how this social impact space is? And it is. I've been working in it for almost 10 years, and it is the way it is. The first conversation, if you ever want to go talk social impact with a big company, is you tell them how they're going to make money, how they're going to save money, how it's going to be a huge marketing opportunity, how it's going to help them from an operational standpoint. And then, oh, by the way, look at all the people you can help. And that's how you get them on board. But so I was able to, regroup for a second, and like literally on a napkin, like literally, like, they say back a napkin math, like literally on a napkin, did some math to figure out that we would be able to reduce their waste disposal costs by a shit ton. And in doing so, we'd be able to bring electricity to the townships. They wouldn't have to drive whatever it was, 1,000 miles to go dump all this stuff out, because they could dump it right in the anaerobic digesters in the townships, generate electricity, and in doing so generate soil that they could then plant and make some of these areas fertile again. And so they were stoked. We had another meeting where I had to meet with the executive board, or the executive dudes, and they're on board, and they're like, but we really need you to meet with this guy. He runs the biggest vermicompost farm in the world. And vermicompost is essentially composting, which a lot of you know, kind of taking organic mass and like churning it through and adding oxygen to it to create like a more vibrant soil. Vermicompost is basically running worms through that. And so worms are very beneficial to soil health. And then there's a juice that's made, and you capture the juice, and it's this like hyper super powerful soil. You can dribble it on soil and make it incredible. And so they were trying to figure out how to mass produce that, because it's a laborious process. They don't really have a way to mechanize it because you need the worms to do it. And he's like, I want you to meet with him before we leave. And I was like, okay, yeah, that's cool. Where's that person? He's like, oh, he's in Mitchell's Flat. I was like, cool, I'll go right now. And so tell homie that I'm on the way. And so, you know, we're in Cape Town, and Cape Town's the murder capital of the world, at least at the time it was. And so I'd text my friend that lives there, and I was like, yo, I was going to go to Mitchell's Flat, but I just want to check in. Like, is that neighborhood cool? Like, is that a chill neighborhood? And she wrote back in all caps, do not fucking go there. And I was like, oh, shit, okay. So I text the dude that I was supposed to meet up with, and because I had a laptop with me, I was dressed for a business meeting. And I was like, yo, my friend's telling me not to go there with my laptop. And he just typed back, ha ha ha, you were going to come with a laptop? No. We'll see you tomorrow. And I was like, okay. And so the next day, I'm staying at a hostel, you know, and I call an Uber, and the Uber picks me up, and it shows the address that I have to go to. And he turns around, he's like, my friend, you put in the wrong address. And I was like, no, that's where I want to go. Mitchell's Flat. Let's fucking do it. And he's just like, no, you put in the wrong address. And so we fight for a while. So I have to end up paying him 270 rand, and which is like $30 at the time anyway. And so he's like, all right, we'll do it. And so I have to pay him another 270 so that he stays afterwards, because there's no way I'm getting an Uber. And so what I didn't appreciate was Mitchell's Flat is the murder capital of Cape Town, the murder capital of the world. It was about 40,000 people, I believe, and they are crammed into some of the most fucked situations possible. It's shantytown is all I've got for it, but like aluminum shacks, you know, kids walking around in like garbage bags, and people cooking on the side of the street and with wrought iron fences and stuff like that. It was rough, and I encourage people to look at the historical history of how that place came to be, but it is fucked, and it is a byproduct of apartheid. And please look it up, because I don't have the bandwidth to do that well, eloquently, and concisely. But so we're driving, and we get off the freeway to Mitchell's Flat, and homie starts driving way faster than he did when he was on the highway. We're driving like 80 miles per hour, and we're zigging and zagging, you know, almost hitting people. And so I'm freaking out, and I'm looking at my phone to check GPS to see, like, is he taking me somewhere to kill me? And he looks back, he's like, oh my God, put your phone away. They'll take it. Put your phone away. I felt like I was in like Taken, right? Like I felt like I was like, oh, I fucked up. Like, what? You're just trying to do business deals in South Africa. You don't know shit about the country. And so we end up going to this place, and it's got guard towers all around it, and to guard a farm. It's this little farm in the middle of Mitchell's Flat, and it's got guard towers everywhere, because the place is there's so much poverty there that they need to guard the food like it is a military compound. We're good. And so I get in there, and they show me, it's very impressive. They've got these big aerobic digesters, right, which are usually bigger, and there's a lot more oxygen added to it. And they're running it through this vermicompost farm. And honestly, it was just him showing me the technology. It was not completely necessary for me to go, but I was just, trying to build goodwill with this company, because now we've inked, or like we're ready to rock with a $15 million deal, which is the most money I've ever even heard of being close to. Like I'm like, we're gonna foster this relationship, and so become tight with the dude. I'm genuinely very interested in all that sort of stuff, vermicompost and all sorts of agricultural processes. And so the Uber driver takes me out. I go back to the hostel and I start drinking, right? Because I'm like, I this is about to happen. I'm not able to afford anything outside of a hostel right now, and I'm about to make a $15 million deal. So I fly straight to Seattle, and I get there, and they take me into this boardroom, and they start, having all these talks, and I start to get a little weary with like the way that the talks are going, and I was like, I need you guys to show me the technology. And they're like, oh, well, it's with Amazon. They said that they had an installation in the Amazon parking lot. I was like, you need to show it to me. And so they showed me 3 of their 4 installations. They all did not work. The technology itself that they had advertised didn't work. It was all just like this sloppy shit with like garden hoses and stuff like that. And so it just didn't work. And so I had spent this whole week in South Africa pitching my services, then flew to Seattle to ink this deal, all to find out that the technology just didn't work at all. So yeah, I think that that's enough for one story. That is my first story of like really getting burnt with business. And I guess I talked a little of the extortion up top. But yeah, this is Stories with Steven. If you listen to this whole episode, I appreciate you. I'm going to record one more real quick after this with another story of being burnt in business. And maybe we'll do a couple more of these. Let me know if you like these close, intimate situations. Love you guys. Please like, subscribe, all that shit.